Optimus Prime, leader of the Autobots, and one of the most self-renowned characters in the Transformers franchise. The GOAT. Well, one of the GOATs of the Autobots, because the Autobots got a lot of GOATs, actually. Like, the Autobots was just filled with GOATs, like Jesus. You guys get the point, right? Optimus Prime is a very great leader. But even then, during the eras of Fall of Cybertron and War for Cybertron, or the Transformers Prime verse, he made a lot of mistakes, and these are his top 5. Number 5 is easily not taking Grimlock's advice. Grimlock had seen that the Decepticons were replenishing and fighting at much higher levels than the Autobot soldiers, and this was happening repeatedly. And with the fact that Cybertron was pretty much barely had any energon at the time, Grimlock made note that Decepticons may have found another energon source to keep replenishing them and their ranks. But unfortunately, Optimus Prime did not take the time to investigate this and simply kind of wrote Grimlock off in this regard here. Even to the point where Grimlock even had to send Swoop to honestly spy on the Decepticons and see what was going on. Why are they replenishing themselves? Now, what if Optimus Prime had taken this advice? Well, in all honesty, he could have just sent any other troops to investigate it. Jazz and Cliff Jumper could have gone on the same mission they did, or basically a different one, to maybe retrieve the Energon signal. But in all honesty, I think Optimus Prime could have sent his best scout patrol, which in the Aligned continuity did include the likes of Blue Streak and Prowl. These two would have easily gotten a good scouting mission. It would have been a fun chapter, and Grimlock would have not been captured. Sure, we wouldn't have had the Dinobots, maybe at a later date we would, but still, it would have been a much better outcome than the original. Number 2 is not protecting the Energon cargo carrier properly. Okay. Now, unfortunately, fortunately, he did have Titans and Enforcers on it, but really against the Combaticons. In short, in the original, it was supposed to be a combiner, and we're just going to call it Broadside, because that's what the thing was. That's who he was. It was another Titan, second to only Metroplex. So Broadside was not really protected in either form, honestly. The Decepticons, short. If Starscream, if the Combaticons pretty much obeyed Starscream, they wouldn't have done it here. But the Combaticons are legit the wreckers of the Decepticons. Optimus Prime could have put in someone better in that mission. Now, Onslaught was a very tactical person here. And in all honesty, you want to have my people who should have done it? Impactor's crew. The Ruination group could have did it very easily, or the Protectobots. Either one would have been utilized perfectly during this mission. And I mean, really, you could have the Combaticons and Bruticus versus the Wreckers and Ruination. Literally had the Wreckers of two sides going head to head in a battle for the Energon cargo. Whether the Wreckers lose and die in that one, or the Combaticons lose and die, or pretty much one side gets beaten so badly that they have no choice but to retreat, it doesn't matter. It means Optimus Prime actually put his faith in other Autobots and that could match the tactical prowess of not only Onslaught, but the Combaticons in general. Impactor is a very great strategist, in my opinion. He's a very great strategist and is even the commander of the Wreckers. This means this dude is basically Ultra Magnus's, Ultra Magnus. While Ultra Magnus is basically Optimus Prime, Impactor is basically Ultra Magnus's, second in command. And then the sheer fact that the Combaticons themselves are just an elite team itself, that Optimus Prime even sent Jazz to take care of him. Jazz, Optimus Prime's second lieutenant, up there with Ultra Magnus, above Impactor. You could even argue he's better than Ultra Magnus because he knows how to keep his cool in this situation, even under pressure. And if Jazz and Jetfire could get the job done, really? If Jazz and Jetfire could get the job done against the Combaticons, then why not send them? Or put two main Autobots that could know that you believe can handle the Combaticons. Matter of fact, the Protectobots would have been very interesting to see, considering they are confirmed a part and canon to this franchise. Now, sure, the Combaticons are no joke. They're legit the wreckers of the Decepticons. And there's only 5 of them. That means that those 5 know how to work so well together that they can take on and take out pretty much anything or anyone that comes across it. So why not put a team that can take down just as much and do it in a much more fun way? You could even send elite Autobots that are superpowered to even handle this. I mean, Optimus Prime, Blur, Trax, and Mirage were all confirmed, canon. They were just confirmed canon to the franchise. They each have their own abilities. Mirage can turn invisible. Blur was super fast. And Trax, I think, had super strength. He was, like, freakishly strong, what they said here. Now, on to number 3. Could have taken advantage of Starscream's leadership. Starscream was a terrible leader in Fall of Cybertron, to the point where, they spent most of his resources on self-worship. And even then, he didn't bother following anyone's advice. The dude was a terrible leader in general. All right? Leading the Decepticons into ruin. This would have been a perfect time to even have the Wreckers or any group here take advantage of Starscream's leadership and raid Kaon for materials. Or better yet, claim some territory. Because the Decepticons actually took over a lot of territory that used to belong to the Autobots. This would have been a perfect time to have Ultra Magnus, Jazz, and maybe a couple other Deceptic Autobots take over the leadership take over these territories and get them back for the Autobot cause so that they have much more of a ground to pretty much defend. Next off is not using Trypticon as a power source for the Ark. Sure, it sounds ruthless. It sounds, out of character for even Optimus. But you guys need Energon to power the Ark. Trypticon was already being used as a battery anyway. They could have used his Energon reserves to power the Ark. Metroplex would not need to actually die. Metroplex would have lived. Now, sure, he wouldn't be able to go on to the Ark because he was simply just too big. They wouldn't have, there wouldn't have been a way to pretty much put him on the Ark unless he pretty much is able to attach himself, transform into his, I think his artillery mode, and then just simply, and then simply just be done with it. The Decepticons would not have the means to use the Nemesis. Okay, they wouldn't even be able to make it in the first place. And this means the Decepticons are stranded and left to try and take over Iacon. Now, judging by the Fall of Cybertron comics, or the Rage of the Dinobots comics, Megatron would have to deal with Ultra Magnus, some remaining Cybertronians, mainly the Wreckers. The Wreckers were actually the ones who actually stayed on Cybertron in actual canon. The Dinobots and the Wreckers. So that means Ultra Magnus would not have been in Transformers Prime because he would have to lead the planet. Or if he left the planet, Grimlock would be in charge, and he's a far more deadlier tactician than even Ultra Magnus. Now, is this the third? No, I think this is the 5th, right? The 5th one, to me, is pretty simple. Why didn't y'all keep Megatron's body? They should have kept Megatron's body in Iacon. Pretty much reserve it or pretty much keep it there instead of letting the Decepticons have it when they can simply bring him back. No Megatron means the Ark is able to freely get away. No Megatron means Starscream leads the Decepticons into ruin. And there would be a Decepticon civil war over the leadership. Because I guarantee you the Combaticons ain't letting them kill Onslaught. This means the Combaticons and even Shockwave would have pretty much taken over outright. But they would have exhausted so many resources just on their own Decepticon civil war here that it would have just, it wouldn't look good. It really wouldn't have. So in all honesty, yeah, Optimus Prime should have kept the body of Megatron and made sure that Soundwave couldn't rebuild him at all. Like, in all honesty, make sure Megatron can't be rebuilt. And with that being said here, Optimus Prime is a very good leader. I'm not saying he isn't. But during the Fall of Cybertron games, he played way too defensively, in my opinion. He was playing too much defense and not enough offense to the point where, yes, the war came to a stalemate because of him. But if he actually played some offensive tactics, I'm pretty sure that could have shaken up the war. And the Decepticons would have actually been much more hesitant to invade Iacon like they did at the beginning of the game. They pretty much invaded because Grimlock was captured, and he was the only reason why they couldn't even get into Iacon in the first place. So in all honesty, Optimus Prime made some mistakes, but he's still a good leader.